One of the biggest goals of this regime right now is to have us in a state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn all of the time. AOC's video from about 6 months ago still has a lot of relevant advice, challenging us not to give them our fear. She likens this regime to a beast that feeds on fear, right? Because fear emboldens them. It gives this regime strength. Without fear, it cannot survive. They want their base to be in a mode of fear of the other, fighting and raging against the ones they've tried to scapegoat, instead of standing together in unity against this oligarchical regime. It also feeds them when the resistance splinters, when folks fall into this progressive insistence on ideological purity and fight amongst ourselves. When our nervous systems are so dysregulated because of the chronic chaotic environment that we're in, and we slip into a constant rage, being on edge because they fear us when we are in an energetic and creative space of responding strategically within community with deep care and consideration for those who are being most effective. It would be even more of a tasty treat for them if we were violent towards or back towards the state, so they could point their finger at us in an attempt to shame us for something that they started. They would just be delighted to be able to snack on our flight response if we were to deny, run away, act like what's happening is not happening, refuse to bear witness, and avoid taking responsibility for our country, or excuse ourselves from the situation because of this temptation to believe that the actions we're taking are too small or won't make a difference. Or perhaps withdraw our intention entirely because we feel too threatened, buying into the narrative that we are powerless. This sort of neutrality feeds the bullying behavior. This is like when we were in school and there was someone who was behaving in a bullying way, and if people turned away and ignored it, right? If everyone ignored it, even though the one being picked on is saying, hey, I'm hurting over here, this is not okay. And the teachers and everyone around them gave up their power because they were saying, oh, I'm just glad they're not picking on me, and fail to intervene and just allow it to happen and turn their backs on them. What happens? The bullying behavior gets bigger and bolder and more ongoing, and they come for one person at a time until it's you, until it's me, and then who is there to intervene on our behalf? Another good meal for them is if we become too overwhelmed by the chaos and get stuck in the freeze state, doing nothing, incapacitating our needed participation in movements, giving up our power and forfeiting our influence to this regime. And of course, for dessert, they would just love if they could munch on our fawn response, which is something that we've been seeing from some of our institutions. We cannot forget the power of the individual. Institutions, organizations, corporations, those are made up of individuals. They are given their power by individuals. Whether you are on a board or you are an employee or a client or some sort of consumer of what an institution provides, we have personal power in and around these institutions. And they would love to have us believing that we don't. We can say, no, I'm not in agreement with this decision. I'm not going to be quiet about it because the cost is too high. I'm not going to go to the school anymore because the cost of compliance is too high. I'm not going to watch this network. I'm not going to enable immoral compliance. The cost to my country, my conscience is too high. This will be risky, and people have already lost their jobs, but it takes collective non-compliance, and that starts with the individual. I'm going to make a video about moral courage and some recent examples of this that can inspire us later on, so watch for that one. But I believe what we're going to do, what we're going to keep doing, is what AOC was suggesting in that video. And some of us just finding our sea legs, you are welcome to come along and help us starve the beast out. We will continue to peacefully fight, being aware of our stress response, using our emotional intelligence, not letting our fear response control us, instead choosing how we respond with strategy and self-control. while coming together and organizing and a mutually supportive community, building bridges and working with people of all kinds, making space for former Trump voters, Trump supporters, so they too can join the movement, because perhaps some of them are saying, I don't like what I see. This is not what I intended to vote for. We will make space in our movements. We're not going to take flight, but we will take time to choose radical self-care as resistance, finding mental, spiritual, and emotional peace to banish this clutter of constant confrontation that's in our faces. We're going to rely on the remedy of safe friends and family while staying informed and engaged, while intentionally honoring our nervous system so we can show up clear-eyed and with a powerful presence, infusing power in all of our action steps, causing a more effective movement. We're not going to stay frozen, but we will practice coping mechanisms, allowing emotions to move through us instead of suppressing them, and allowing ourselves to cultivate joy when we can, peace as often as possible, and hope as we observe both our wins from the courts and in other spaces. There is so much chaos and a constant stream of chaotic actions taken by this regime. The ongoing terrorizing of our immigrant communities, bracing for the impact of the big bogus bill, among a constant stream of other news items. This is more of Bannon's muzzle velocity approach. We can't lose sight of the underpinnings of this regime's agenda and strategy. We must keep our eyes on the prize, fight with peace and love of country and neighbor in our hearts, and make his removal from office imminent. He wants us to stop, we won't. He wants us to live in fear, we refuse. He wants us to think that he is more powerful than he is. Guess what? Just recently, after the White House hid spending data, a judge ordered Trump to follow the law. Also, a judge reinstated credit union agency members fired by Trump. Also, a federal appeals court upheld a lower court's block on Trump's anti-birthright citizenship executive order, saying it contradicts the plain language of the Constitution. A federal judge struck down his attempt to end union rights for federal workers. Also, a judge blocked GOP efforts to defund Planned Parenthood. Also, a federal judge has thrown out the Trump administration's bid to force Illinois and Chicago to aid its mass deportation agenda, saying it would encroach on autonomy guaranteed to the states under the Constitution. Also, the Supreme Court blocked an appeals court ruling that would gut a key provision of the Voting Rights Act. And just this week, federal courts ordered Trump to answer on actions taken for an anti-voting order. So a judge paused the Trump regime's push to expand fast-track deportations. Also, an appeals court keeps an order blocking the Trump regime from indiscriminate immigration sweeps. Also, the Illinois governor says that the Texas Democrats who left Texas will be protected amid arrest threats. Also, Colorado's attorney general has sued Trump 33 times since his inauguration. So far, he's mostly won. Also, Tesla's poor stock performance has slashed Elon Musk's wealth by $80 billion. Boycotts and protests work, folks. More than a dozen states have sued the Trump administration to block trans care investigations. So, if you want regular doses of good news to see winning stories like these, you can subscribe to The Smile, which is part of the Civic Shout Activist Network. They'll also send you petitions and other action items you can follow up on. And I put the link in the description box so you can subscribe for yourself. I also put the links to all the associated articles with these headlines. Thank you so much for joining me. If you find value in my content, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep fear in its place in this fight.